What's up, my psychoflexers? Now let's kick things off with a fight Johnny was talking about that rapidly escalated into a horrifying physical altercation. Miss Heard was furious because of the postnuptial agreement. Wow, what a shocker. So he testified that she was so mad that he literally had to remove himself from the fight by locking himself in 9 different rooms during that day alone. Anyway, after hearing her walk away, he decided to get a drink at the bar. After downing 3 shots of vodka just to cope with this stressful situation, Amber came to the bar and started yelling at him for being drunk, just shouting profanities at him, and in a blink of an eye, all hell broke loose. She picked up the vodka bottle and just threw it at him. And as if that wasn't enough, she threw an even bigger bottle. This time, it shattered on the bar, severing his middle finger. He was just so caught up in the mayhem that he didn't even feel the pain. He looked at his hand because he felt something dripping down his hand. He literally didn't even realize his finger was severed until he was looking at his bones sticking out of his flesh. So while Johnny Depp was talking about that horrific incident in court, they pull up a picture of that incident. And when he sees that picture, he remembers this spine-chilling detail like, oh yeah, and by the way, she also used my face as an ashtray, putting out my own cigarette on my face. I mean, that's just insane. For someone to forget such a traumatizing detail like being burnt in the face with a cigarette, to me that just shows how much abuse this man must have suffered mentally, emotionally, and even physically. Because look, psychologically, we remember things that are rare in life with more details rather than things that happen a lot. So for example, if I ask you about your wedding ceremony, even if it was 40 years ago, you're likely to remember every detail of it because it was a unique experience. But if I ask you about every sandwich you've ever had, you're likely going to forget a few sandwiches, which just shows you physical abuse was such a recurring theme within this toxic relationship. I mean, if someone burnt a cigarette out on my face, I promise you, I sure as hell would remember such a gruesome memory. And so those were Johnny's tragic memories of that infamous night in Australia. Alright, now let's hear her version of the same story and analyze her behavior. Lights, camera, action! Okay, so here she's leading into the story. Okay, let's not be too hard on her. Maybe she'll tell the truth about what really happened. Even if her lips won't, her body language sure as hell will. Okay, so here we'll be focusing on finding clusters of deception, which are certain behaviors and mannerisms that reveal if a person is lying or not. Now keep in mind that we need a couple of these signs to indicate a cluster of deception. And remember that it must deviate from our baseline to actually signify lying and deception. So by licking her lips, she's trying to look more presentable to build credibility and seem more trustworthy. Then she touches her face, which normally indicates lying, especially when combined with, you guessed it, mouth blocking, which we usually do subconsciously to keep words from coming out of our mouth. Next, we have a lip compression, which we subconsciously do when we want to withhold our opinion or simply hide any kind of information. Then we see a whole lot of eye flutters, and although it is part of her baseline, she does it like crazy here. Finally, she does this huge slow blink, and we normally do this when we don't want to face something. So when a cluster like this happens in quick succession, it usually means that the person is probably lying, or at the very least hiding something. A cluster like that before even speaking of the alleged abuse, I can't wait to see her inner Pinocchio spring to life. Okay, let's check out a couple of times where her body language literally betrayed her and the truth slipped out. So here she's describing her attempt to end an argument by leaving the room by saying, I'm walking out of the room, leaving him, when boom, she subconsciously slips saying,
walking out of the room is me leaving him, walking away from me, you know, hey, where are you going? I'm talking to you. That it went from that.
She simply slips because the reality was that Johnny was the one walking away, and her mind just couldn't keep up with her web of lies. Now here's another time her body language betrays her. In this clip, she's saying, he holds up this bottle, but then she goes on saying,
you know, I'm saying, did you drink this whole thing?
She's gesturing like she's the one holding the bottle. And once again, the truth surfaces indicating that she's the one actually holding the bottle. Alright, psychoflexers, now to the fun part. You guessed it, it's the moment of truth. Is she lying? So you know how some people when they lie they subconsciously scratch their nose? Well, ding ding ding! That's our first clue in this cluster of deception. And almost simultaneously, we see her do a mouth block. Then we hear her say, honestly, which is a perception qualifier. These are words like honestly, sincerely, that are meant to convince you like real quickly, like, I'm being honest here. Next is the single-sided shoulder shrug, where her left shoulder goes up alone, which only happens, or mostly happens, when we know that what we're saying isn't the full story. In addition to that, she's gesturing no while saying these things, which indicates deception in this cluster. Next, we see her biting her inner lip, which is an indicator of withholding opinion and trying to hide something. Finally, yet significantly, being overspecific, which in her case is a mechanism to gain trust when used within a cluster, like focusing on irrelevant details rather than the abuse details itself, like the kind of flooring and emphasizing the color of tiles. Okay, so let me get this straight. You can remember the color of tile you smashed the bottle on, but you can't remember whether you threw the bottle over a human being, severing his middle finger in the process? Like seriously? Congrats on saying that with a straight face.
No soul in his eyes. Just blank. He was clearly blacked out. There was no person when I looked.
Alright, I know what you're thinking right now. What does Rihanna have to do with this? Well, in that clip, Rihanna describes what it's like living with her abusive ex-boyfriend, Chris Brown. Now let's hear Amber Heard describe living with her allegedly abusive husband.
I'm looking at it in his eyes, and I don't see him anymore. I don't see him anymore. It wasn't him. It was black. I've never been so scared in my life. It was black. I couldn't see him.
Ring a bell? Okay, look. Lying about abuse is one thing, but actually stealing a survivor's heartbreaking story is just stooping way too low. Ironically, even though Rihanna was so calm and collected while speaking, you could still just feel her pain and empathize with her without her even shedding a single tear. Yet we just don't feel that with Amber's testimony. Weird, right? So why is that? Well, mainly because it feels so fake. Firstly, her breathing isn't consistent with an anxiously devastated person. She's actually taking long, deep breaths rather than short, fast ones. Second, although her mouth is pulled downward to reenact sadness, but her cheeks aren't relaxed and droopy as they should be. Finally, she spoke about most of these events in her deposition in 2016, yet she was never so emotionally dramatic, showing this forced sadness and panic. This shows that something isn't right because usually as time goes by, we get less emotional about events, not more emotional. Look, at the end of the day, this is literally the pure definition of a toxic relationship. As for who's lying in it, I'll let you be the judge of that. See you next time!